Powered by Rep Media in partnership with TSN, it is season 6 of the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast, presented by our title sponsor, Tim Hortons. So much going on with Tim Hortons around the Stanley Cup playoffs, but in addition, hey, Tim's is stacking its lunch and dinner menu with the launch of the new Supreme Stack Sandwich. Features a tall stack of seasoned, delicious steak, double smoked bacon. You've got caramelized onions, mozzarella, and Monterey Jack cheese, along with a creamy peppercorn sauce, all on a potato bun. A 10 out of 10. Perfect pickup on my way into studio, Ray. I get the medium coffee with one milk, and then because I'm zipping through in studio around 3:30 Eastern, sometimes 3:45, you get that Supreme Stack, and you stash it. You stash it, and then you get done all your pregame hits, and then 7 o'clock, you're set.
That's dangerous. So you eat with your shirt and tie on? Oof.
No,
I've seen many a catastrophe like that.
Yeah, but this is a Mike Johnson trick because, hey, you're doing the broadcast when you're, part of the playoffs.
Yeah,
I'm not. So we do our pregame hits. Tarps off. I got a couple of T-shirts that are stashed away in the dressing room. Throw in a T-shirt. Then second intermission, you go back, you throw the shirt and tie on, and you're all set for the night.
So that's a Johnny pull?
That's a Johnny pull. And then Frankie Corrado has adopted it. O-Dog, he's barely clothed. Like, you can imagine what's going on when he's in that viewing room.
Well, it's funny there. Yeah, like I think of Johnny and Frankie, and with both of them, like one time 4 years ago, their tie was off center, but it was just one time. Both of them.
Yeah, crisp.
And they're sharp. And so, I have seen the disastrous eating something so good that you kind of lose the moment and oops. Oh, that's my only dress shirt. Oops.
So, hey, obviously you're in the Pacific time zone. So whether it goes to overtime, double overtime, triple overtime, doesn't really matter to you. I mean, it doesn't. You've got that 3-hour cushion. Those of us in the East who, again, are invested because it's what we do for the job. We've got the hot zone. It's our post-game version. And I'm flying to Edmonton today, Friday, as we record this episode of Rain Dregs. Goes into overtime, and I get a text from you. And I could just tell.
Trying to support you.
Yeah, but it was something along the lines of, oh, that's too bad. You got to wait in studio another 2 hours. So you were forecasting this was going to be a triple or a quadruple overtime.
When that puck hit the back of the net or the side of the net where it went in, I couldn't get that text out fast enough. Because we've all been you're on the home stretch. You can see that, we're going to be out of here in 33 minutes. And then, oh, no, you're not. And of course it's open-ended after that, right? Like you'd be there forever. And when that went in though, I was like, man, like that is just outside of the debacle of game 3. That's how this series is. Every game, and we can go back to last year, certainly to game 7, and every game has turned on one thing, or the difference between the win and the loss is a save, a bounce, a post. Man, it has been, so now they've played, what have they played now? 11 games.
Yeah.
And it's 6-5. Right? Like, that's it. It's just 6-5. And and now we got a 2 out of 3 again. And this year the difference is home flips to the other side. So it's been amazing to watch.
All right. Well, let's get into the weeds here and we'll dissect game 4 and the overall series as we prep now on the eve of game 5 in Edmonton. And we'll do that in our Tim Hortons headlines, Ray. So it's 3-0 after the first period in game 4. And, you're probably sitting there going like I was, geez, this looks like a familiar script. A couple of bad penalties. Kane takes one. Darnell Nurse doubles down. Tkachuk scores on the power. And just the wheel of the Florida Panthers keeps on turning. So 3-0 after 1. and it is the defending Stanley Cup champions in charge in Game 4. I mean, I wasn't ready to call it. I have too much respect for the Oilers, but come on. I mean, like a 3-goal lead with 40 minutes to go, that felt like a pretty comfortable lead at that point. I did not expect to see what we saw unfold.
I thought it was over. And the reason I thought it was over was the way that the Panthers were generating chances. I didn't see that Edmonton was going to be able to stop that and then get their own, right? Like I didn't see both of those things happening.
Yeah.
How the part of the game I think I was most impressed with, like honestly, really impressed with, was the first 5 minutes of the second period.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the time that the Panthers can really step on them, right? Like they can put this
one
away.
more.
If you get one more, and that, except Edmonton didn't give them the chance to do that.
No.
Skinner had an early breakaway. Bouchard had a breakaway that led to the penalty that led to the goal, and then all of a sudden it's 3-1, and the game's over at 3-0. It's not over at 3-1.
No.
And that was in 5 minutes, and I was like, wow, this is on now. And we've talked about Chris Knobloch before, and he doesn't fear a change.
No.
Right? Like he just doesn't. And I thought Skinner, man, he made 2 saves in the first 3 minutes or 4 minutes, or that's a couple more. Like he stopped Bennett and maybe Barkov in tight, I think it was.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that's 5. Like you're not coming back from that. And so they take him out, and there's something about Pickard that like sometimes he's not really facing where he's supposed to be, but he is such a fighter. Like if he was a winger, you'd call him scrappy, and like he just never dies. And he does the same thing in goal. And they get one. Then Nurse was outstanding in that second period. Yeah. And they get back into the game, and like a couple of goals, like the Nurse goal was not a good goal. We critique Skinner a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody does. And the Nurse goal, great shot, fabulous shot, shouldn't go in.
Agreed.
And then the game's on, put Coles in scores, and man, it was a pretty spectacular comeback to the point where they had the lead.
Do you believe in teams earning their breaks? Because if you do, then that would explain the Draisaitl overtime winner, right? I mean, to claw back to even that hockey game, to force overtime, and then you get a break in the sense that it goes off Mikkola, redirects, and catches Sergei Bobrovsky by surprise. I mean, clearly Leon was trying to sweep the puck over to Corey Perry, who was at the post. Right. So that's an enormous break, which, I don't know, series changing? Sure. Because if Florida wins that hockey game going into Game 5 elimination, maybe they learn from their mistakes a year ago of letting the Oilers off the mat the way they did last year and don't do it again this year. But instead, Edmonton fights back, and then you get a break like that in overtime. But it feels like they kind of earned it, right?
Well, I guess this is the same thing. I guess why they earned the overtime goal, or the bounce on the overtime goal, is because they didn't panic too badly at 3-0. Right? Like they earned it there. Those first 5 minutes, again, I'm going to go back to that. That to me was the whole night, because that game could have been done, finished at 3-0. They come out, they don't really get a good couple of first shifts, and then it's 4-0. Then it's done, right? Except they've done this all playoffs. Every time you think it's about finished for them, they rally off the mat. And whether it's a Draisaitl or McDavid play, or Nuge was fantastic last night. I thought he was awesome.
Yeah.
Like on the Wollman goal, he's the only Oiler in the zone, basically. And like for a really good defensive team, that will not be on Panthers highlight tape. Like he's
Right.
the only Oiler below the goal line. He ends up with the
Right.
puck. So they earned the break because they stayed in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Like they stayed in it at 3-0, and that's not easy to do. So what's that now? There had been 37 3-goal first period leads in the Stanley
Mm-hmm.
Cup Final. 37-0 for the team up 3-0. Not anymore.
One for the history books for sure. Look, I mean, the Oilers players tried their best to simplify the message in the speech that Corey Perry delivered after the first period, right? And I'm sure that it was laced with colorful language. Who cares about that? It was just the message, right? Let's get to work. Everybody wake up. I mean, is that the very essence? And how impactful is that in that moment? Because it sounds cliche, but I don't want to. I don't want to diminish the weight of Corey Perry, the experience of this guy, and the fact that, as the players acknowledged, you know what? Yeah, we've heard stuff like that before, but right there at that moment, we needed to hear it again. Is it that simple?
100% it is, because there would have been players in that room, and you would never know unless you're inside, like inside their heads. But there would have been players sitting there going, "Are you effing kidding me?
Yeah.
Like we're down again like this.
Mm-hmm.
Like how did that even happen?" And then you hear this because the room would have been quiet. I mean, it's not like everybody's coming in there with a lot of energy. I mean, obviously we're not there, but it's not like everybody's coming in like, "Oh, we can come back, guys," and all. Like that's not what's happening. Guys,
Right.
sit down. You take your helmets off, and a lot of guys take their uppers off, like their shoulder pads and all that. And you sit there, and when if he's the guy, as everybody said, that said, let's get back to work. If you reach two or three players with that, and you go, yeah, you know what, like we just need one goal here in
Mm-hmm.
this period. At the end of the period, if we're one goal closer at the end of it, we're in the game.
Yeah.
And so I do think it can be as simplistic as that, like that message. And I do think it can matter. And it does
Mm-hmm.
matter who it comes from. Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of guys that it's a lot of noise. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
when a quiet guy or a quieter guy says something, a respected guy, it carries a lot of weight. Then you got to go out and do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they all took a deep breath. At some point, Knobloch tells Pickard he's going in the net, and that gives a little surge of energy again. Nothing against Skinner, but it's like guys
Yeah.
will, let's go, Pick. Like you get a little blast, and then those first 5 minutes that like that was a textbook way that you hope a comeback can work, because 99.5% of the time it doesn't work, but it did
Right.
last night.
So Knobloch did talk about how, yeah, it's fun. And from a fan perspective, it's super entertaining. I mean, we were entertained watching how that hockey game started, and then how it evolved, and then obviously how it ended. But when you're in it as a head coach, because there's only so much you can do as a coach, you're not on the ice, you're not executing, but you are making, meaningful and impactful decisions. And so let's just talk a little bit more about that, because there were multiple changes going into Game 4. He elevates Connor Brown to the top line, puts Corey Perry down on the fourth to start. We know he likes to blend his lines very quickly after the opening faceoff, which he did again in Game 4. Pulls out John Klingberg, who frankly was struggling. He'd had a couple of tough games in the Stanley Cup Final. Puts in Troy Stetcher. Jeff Skinner draws into the Stanley Cup Final, and there was some internal debate. Okay, well, we want Skinner to come in because he might provide a pop of offense. Who's coming out? Is it Arvidsson? Is it Trent Frederick? Is it Podkolzin? I mean, those were the three pieces that they were debating, and they opt. And I don't know if I'm surprised that it's Arvidsson. I thought Arvidsson was effective. He's like a little ball of energy out there, and all of those things. But it works out in favor because Podkolzin has a terrific hockey game, right? With a goal and an assist. So to have the intestinal fortitude to make those coaching decisions at this stage, the Stanley Cup Final, that's hefty stuff. That's not light lifting.
Right. It is. I think part of the decision gets made for you. If you decide Skinner's going in, really tough against Florida to have both Skinner and Arvidsson in the lineup.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, so you get small in a hurry.
Right.
Draisaitl likes Podkolzin. Like he's had a terrific year for where he started. Didn't play a lot once he got traded from Vancouver at the start of the year. And he's a worker. And so now you get down to Frederick or Podkolzin. If it could be Arvidsson that stays, and I don't think they want to do that.
Right.
And Frederick's been there's a guy I look at, he's just not connected with the game as he can be. Like there's more there. And I think he got so far behind that, he's been chasing it most of his stay in Edmonton. I mean, he almost scored and he just doesn't look quite right. So when they go to Skinner, I thought Skinner was effective in the minutes that he had.
Yeah.
He had the little breakaway, right? And you're not looking for him to play 18 minutes like he did 5 years ago. And so, I see, and some of it you make change for change, right? Like, so you take a right-handed D out, you put a right-handed D in. And, Stetcher got victimized on the third goal. And now, of course, it could have been a penalty after, but the turnover had already been made. And so, not could have been, should have been a penalty, but he'd already been beaten on the play. So do you switch back for game 5 or do you keep the lineup? Or, those are decisions they're going to have to make. But he's not shy about moving pieces around in his lineup. And he does it all game, every game. They do it on D. They do it up front. They move this defense pair to that defense pair. And the wingers move all over the place. And hell, it's hard to argue. Last year, they won 15 games under Chris Kreider. And now they've got 14. They won 29 games in the last 2 playoff runs. And they've got nothing for it now. But what they get to do is have a chance to win their 15th game again.
Yeah. And again, we're into the full dissection of a series here because we're going into game 5. It's a best of 3. But I do wonder about that defenseman swap, right? Because after Stetcher made the mistake, I mean, totally played like 4 minutes and 18 seconds in an overtime hockey game. So, you only have 3 games left. But I'm reminded of the infamous quote from Paul Maurice on the bench in the Boston series, right? Yep. Where he's like, stop worrying about plays, pound their D. So in game 7, they have nothing left. And there's some big boys back there on that Edmonton Oilers blue line, but I am reminded of that. And that's got to be what Florida is thinking, unless there's a change and maybe Klingberg feels a bit refreshed. I don't know. Would you make the change? Would you bring him back into the mix?
It depends what you're looking for. Are you looking for 12 minutes from that guy? Which is probably 10 to 12 you're looking for, assuming it's not overtime. If you don't think Stetcher can give you that, then you have to chance that Klingberg can. Like that really becomes the decision. Do you think Stetcher can give us 10 to 12 minutes?
Yeah.
And one of the reasons you do have Big D is to absorb as much of the contact as you're going to get in a playoff series. That's, like Bouchard's a big guy. Nurse is a big guy. Kulak is a sturdy, big guy. Ekholm's a Viking. He can stand back there and, so they're built in a way to absorb that. But it would be dangerous to play with 5 guys you trust and 1 you don't.
I agree.
It really the line gets really thin there.
Yeah. A little bit more on Darnell Nurse. again, we like to cheer for individual players, right? At the end of the day, it doesn't matter to us. From a Canadian perspective, would it be nice to see a Canadian team hoist the cup? Of course. There's my birth certificate on the table. But Darnell Nurse was wearing the signs of struggle, even in that game last night. Right, like again, he's run into some penalty issues.
Mhm.
Maybe that's frustration. Maybe that's trying to do a little bit too much. So then you see how he bounces back in that second period, and we talked a little bit about the goal that he scored. I mean, that's just a beauty of a shot, but it got him going, and it was almost like it was the weight of the world lifted off his shoulders.
Sure.
Right? It's like, all right, here we go. And I felt good for him in that moment, because leading up to that goal, he looked like he had been slapped around. Like he wasn't defeated. I'm not gonna attack him to that point, but he looked like he was getting worn out, and this kind of reinvigorated him.
When every decision you make is the wrong one, it's amazing how you lose confidence, you lose energy, you lose almost like faith that you can make the right play. And then you get defensive, and it's all those things you're talking about with Nurse. Like he knows he has to be an impactful player. But he also knows in the last year and a half, he's tried to do less, and the less he does, the better he plays.
Yes.
So now he's trying to do less, but he takes another penalty. He kicks out Barkov's foot. I mean, it takes him 4 seconds, and it's in the net again. You're like, Are you kidding me? Like, he's just trying to be aggressive. So, like on that play, but it's hard now to be aggressive during the play because you doubt yourself. Then he scores the goal, and what I thought on the Podkolzin goal, when the puck came back to him, it was almost like that's old Darnell Nurse. He just took off down the boards. He didn't flip it into the corner like on a safe play or go D to D and try and control. He's like, I'm going down the wall. Now, it ends up with a bounce to the front of the net, but he made that by having energy from scoring, and I'm telling you, it's a real thing. It really is. When you score, it's like you get lighter. You're faster, quicker. Now you're like, oh, see, I do have it. You have it, but it's like, oh yeah, there it is. And so all the bad decisions or bad outcomes, you kind of forget those. They get thrown away. It's like hitting 5 lousy golf shots, and then you hit a beautiful 6-iron, and you're like, I'm back.
I'm back, baby.
And that's what I felt with him. I thought he was awesome in the second period. He was up on his toes again, and certainly they're gonna, they need him to be.
Yeah. Another player they need to settle down, and I think he did. After being somewhat disciplined, is Evander Kane, right? He takes yet another high sticking penalty. Part of that sequence in the first period where you just described the tripping penalty that Darnell Nurse takes, and Knoblauch just sits him for a bit. Not an extended period, but enough where the message was made clear, and maybe Evander just needed time to settle down and kind of gather himself and calm his thoughts or whatever. I don't know how to explain that, but he's one of those X factor players, correct? Like if Edmonton is going to hoist the Stanley Cup based on what we've seen from Evander Kane to this point of the postseason, there's a real need for him to play between the lines, but to play because he can be impactful.
In particular without Hyman. I thought he was the closest facsimile to a power forward that they had that could play like Hyman. And the penalties that he's taking, they're incredibly frustrating for everybody to watch.
Yeah.
Because I'm talking about on the Oilers side, the players, the coaches, because he's trying to make something happen, but just keep your stick on the ice. That's where the frustration is. The stick penalties, I think he's taken 4 or 5 of them in the playoffs where I think the number's 5 actually, but where his stick it's a high sticking penalty. And
Yeah.
that to me is just pushing just a little bit too hard or being just a little bit careless looking at the next play instead of the first play. But if you can't trust him not to take a penalty, how can you keep putting him on the ice?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that's where I'm sure Knobloch got to, because they need him to play. Like they need him to be strong enough to impact the forecheck, to create a turnover, and then when he gets the puck, he can really shoot it.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's again, you're not looking for Evander Kane from 6 years ago. You're looking for a big, strong guy that can really shoot the puck and can make a one-play impact. He can do that. And now we're into one-play impact time in the series, right? Like there's
Yeah.
not much time to make it now.
No, look, I think you said this earlier in the week on Ray and Riggs about how predictably it feels like a 2-2 series. And that's exactly where we're at, going into a best of 3, game 5 on Saturday. So let's just discuss the scenarios here and whether they matter or not. Paul Maurice is a big believer that momentum is momentary, right? It doesn't carry on. It doesn't. And I think we saw that in Exhibit A in game 4. I mean, the Florida Panthers manhandled the Edmonton Oilers in game 3. That momentum carried for a period, and then it didn't. And now the series is tied at 2. So is there an edge? Is there an edge in this series that you can see as we go back to Edmonton?
Well, the edge is, I'll just look back a year to game 7 was in Florida, and Florida won. Now, you can say home ice matters or doesn't matter, but I mean, it was a 2-1 game. It's not like it was 5-0.
No.
So I think it is harder to control the atmosphere in Edmonton than it is in Florida. Like that place is going to be bonkers on Saturday. And one thing I'm going to miss. Well, I miss doing the games, but one thing I'm going to miss is when McDavid comes out of the chute and he comes flying out of there. I'm standing right there and I can hear him coming. I don't even have to look.
That's
because
awesome.
It just sounds different. And when he hits the ice, every time, I don't know how many times I've seen it, I'm like, it takes my breath away. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe he's already out there. Like he takes 2 strides and he's like 30 feet.
Yeah.
And you're like, so I'm going to miss that. I think the advantage is small, but it is that it is that it's home ice. It is that it is in Edmonton. There are all kinds of variables. Like if you're Chris Knobloch, is it so simple to start Pickard again in game 5?
I think so.
No, but I mean,
not
like,
simple, but I think you do it.
But but if Skinner doesn't play the first period like he did, it was 5-0.
Agreed.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think it's Pickard too, but that's another decision to make.
Yeah.
And like, there is no, like, Florida's got the same lineup. Not that Paul Maurice doesn't have any stress, but he's going to trust in his veteran group and trust that, the puck's not going to bounce off Mikola's foot and go in the net. Like, they'll trust those things. But there are no real decisions in Florida. Bobrovsky's in goal, same 6D, same 12 forwards. And Edmonton has got a couple decisions to make, but they've been doing it. I saw Draisaitl's interview after, and he's like, "This is just what we do. This is like they've been doing it all playoffs, and it's and they'll have to do it again." Small edge here that I picked Florida in 6 before the series, because Game 6 is in Florida, and I thought if they're going to win, they're going to win in Florida.
Yeah.
And so that's why I give Edmonton the small edge now.
Yeah. It's way too soon to say that they've gotten to Bobrovsky. Fair? I mean, you analyzed, a goal here or there that normally Sergei wouldn't. And for me, and I said this in our Hot Zone post game last night, the series, the edge is so difficult to proclaim because big boys from both sides are contributing. We're seeing how the balance of 2 exceptional teams is coming to the forefront. And with all due respect to Cal Pickard, this isn't Cal Pickard being less. It's just, can he match the expected brilliance of Sergei Bobrovsky? And I'm not sure he can. I might say that of Stu Skinner going into the best of three, just because of who Bobrovsky is.
I would give it. Doesn't matter who's in goal for Edmonton. They're the second best goalie in the series, but it doesn't have to be a series for the way. Like if you look at last night, he made a couple good saves in the second period. He made that save off his glove off the crossbar. I think it was on Bennett.
It was on Bennett. Yeah.
Key. There was a block where Ekholm blocked a wide open net. I think it was Tkachuk. Like there are with Pickard, there's always stuff. But he doesn't have to be a Vezina Trophy winner. So what did he do last night? He 1 goal on 23 shots. Like whether Bobrovsky's a better goalie or not, like you're not going to play better than that.
No.
As far as getting to Bobrovsky, remember last year, I think it was game 4, they got 5 or 6 on him.
Yeah.
And then he figured it out. Like he's good. He's one of the best in the game. I mean the obvious spot is you want to shoot it right next to his ears. Like that's the place you beat Bobrovsky. But it's not that easy. You can have the most detailed scouting report at your hands, and when the puck comes to you, you've got to be able to deliver it into a 6-inch window.
Yeah.
And sometimes you do, and sometimes you make the perfect shot and it hits the top of his shoulder or hits the side of his mask. And like, the edge and goal for me going into game 5 is Florida's, but I don't think that changes not for me.
No, and look, I mean, it absolutely could go 7 again. Nobody would be surprised if this series goes 7.
No.
But your prediction pre-series of 6 because game 6 is in Florida, that's also fair. We were there last year, game 7 in Florida. It always feels right when the home team gets to celebrate at home, their extended families, the fans, all of that. And the one thing I was not looking forward to, and I thought about this a bunch as, Florida jumped out to that 3-0 first period. Lee, I'm like, geez, I'm going to have to interview these guys on the ice in post-game.
All about Darren.
In Edmonton. Darren. It is all about me. And I was like, I don't want to have to do that. Anyway, we don't have to do that now. So let's.
No, you don't. You're going to enjoy a Saturday night. You're going to enjoy a Saturday night.
Guys, can I get you to go on the record? Who's starting in goal for the Oilers? Who you think they'll start and who you would start? Is it a done deal? Because there's still some conversation about it among Oiler fans.
Pickard.
I think it'll be Pickard. And if it doesn't go well, or say they lose, I go back to the Vancouver series of a year ago, and Pickard won game 4, lost game 5, and Skinner played game 6.
Mm-hmm.
Like I still think there's a scenario here where you still see both goalies, and
wow,
again, you just have to look back 12 months. It was right there.
Yeah.
So I say Pickard for game 5.
I agree. And I mean, the guy's 7-0, right? In the playoffs. I mean, the only reason he gave up the net was because he got hurt, after going 6-0. So I think it's Cal Pickard because I know how much they discussed making the change prior to game 4, and not an indictment on Skinner. It was just Bob seemed to have the ability to make a key save on the multiple power play chances that the Oilers had to that point, right? And then all of a sudden, Skinner wouldn't let in a bad one, but somehow would beat him short side through traffic, or he wasn't making that type of save. And I know that didn't make them nervous per se, but it gave them fodder to have the conversation of, okay, do we need to go to Cal Pickard? And then ultimately they did. So I see Cal in game 5, Zub. You?
Yeah, I think you got to continue with him at this point. But imagine him winning one, losing one, and them turning back to Skinner for a winner take all game 7.
I love it.
I mean, that's amazing.
Jeez.
That would be wild.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of turns left in this series. I really do.
Wow. See, now I'm fascinated. And I hope you're right. Because as again, we're watching that game unfold yesterday, game 4. I'm thinking of the stodgy days, not that long ago, maybe a decade or so ago, where both coaches after a game like that would come to the media post game and they'd be drained and they'd be disgusted at what they just saw. Because there were so many mistakes and how we couldn't protect a 3-0 lead. That's terrible. This, that, and the other thing. And instead, now both guys, they may feel that way behind the scenes. But I think both coaches, everybody's acknowledging, yeah, it's okay to be disappointed when you lose the game, but be mindful of how entertaining and classic this series is right now. I mean, it's been terrific overall.
And there's both teams are well aware. The coaches are well aware. There's no difference between the teams. No. I mean, they're really different. They're differently constructed, of course, but there's no difference. As I said, we're 6-5 in games here over the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like how could it be any more even? It really can't. And
no, it can't.
I think we sometimes hope for a great series, and then it doesn't happen. This time we hope for a great series, and it's 3 of the 4 have been just amazing games.
All right, well let's wrap up the headlines with a non-series topic quickly, and that's the New York Rangers continue to search for answers. They trade Chris Kreider to the Anaheim Ducks. There's been a whole lot of speculating around that. So I don't think anybody was caught by surprise when it was officially announced. But the reason they do it, they did not retain any salary, the Rangers. So now they've got flexibility. And who knows what else Chris Kreider has up his sleeve to maybe give themselves a little bit more of a financial position, right? And it's not just about the shopping of free agency. Maybe there is an offer sheet scenario that you want to pursue or at least explore. You can't do that, unless you've got flexibility. However, I was asked this morning on Montreal radio, Ray, and I hadn't even given it any thought, aside from the obvious, I guess. So they moved their captain, Jacob Trouba, and now Chris Kreider. So it's not an indictment on those two guys as characters, but it's pretty clear that they want some sort of a leadership change in New York because 2 of their primary guys are no longer part of the organization.
That group of players had been together a long time, and they've had a really good run, and they couldn't push it across the goal line. And then you get guys that start getting a little older, and you probably need flexibility financially. Yeah. You need to change the air in the room a little bit. They felt in the last couple of months last year, they felt stagnant. And sometimes, that's not correct. It's just what we feel from the outside, but they played like it and they looked like it, and they probably needed to make some changes. And so, Trouba's your captain, as you mentioned. Kreider's your longest standing Ranger. He's been there forever. Just had an amazing career in New York. In particular, from age 30 on, he has just been astounding. Mm-hmm. And so now you open up some room there. Will Cooley is a guy that's going to need a little more ice time. He's also going to need a new contract. And you got to be careful that you don't have any space and somebody comes over the top on you on Will Cooley.
Yes. Yeah.
So now they've alleviated that. It doesn't feel like they're done, though, does it, Drakes?
It does not. No, it does not. And I would say the same thing, the Anaheim Ducks. Pat Verbeek, now with Joel Quenneville on the bench, it not just lip service. When they started to sign some guys and make some directional changes less than a year ago, the message was pretty evident. It was clear. It was, hey, we feel like we're ready to turn the corner. So what's up next for the Ducks. What does that look like? And we're going to talk a lot about that on the podcast, just across the board, because even though the draft is decentralized, I think once the Stanley Cup has been handed out, there's going to be activity. There's going to be movement.
It really feels like the queue is full, and just waiting for everything to clear, and then like the free agency is one thing, but this feels like trade season more than it has a lot in the last few summers, for sure.
Good stuff. All right, Friday. What do you got for the weekend? Any big family plans? There's got to be golf.
Yeah, actually, no. We got a little grad celebration for Riley this weekend, so we got some people over here, and I'll probably go hit some balls Sunday, just post U.S. Open finish. Which of course is a lot of my focus, and watch some games. Not much else, Drake. It's kind of nice to just sit here. So I know you'll have a great trip. You'll have a great trip out to Edmonton.
Is the grad party catered? Is Ray manning the barbecue? Is it just like a tapas? Like there'll be some nibbles and some wine and things like that?
More the third thing. I've been. I'm pretty sure I'll get a list here.
Yeah.
And that's my contribution to it. Nobody wants me barbecuing. I suck.
Do you really?
I lack focus at the barbecue. And so like I'm the type that'll say like, okay, Zuby, how do you want your steak? And he'll say medium, and you say medium rare. And then I put them on, and then I forget which one's which, and then you just get what you get.
Yeah, well, that's fine too.
Well, yeah, but I like that. And I do lose. Did I leave that on a little bit? Maybe I should use the meat thermometer. Oh, I can't find it. Oh, I think I've had it. Like that's how I barbecue. It's not good.
See, when I've got a crowd like that, that's why you put a monstrous steak, like a tomahawk or something like that on the barbecue.
Good
because
thinking.
now you've got a sitting for 6 or something like that, and you just say, hey, look, I'm grilling a tomahawk, just to keep it even for everybody. I'm going to cook it to medium. I hope everybody's okay with that. And then you slice it up, 1/4 of an inch thick, and presents well with the juice and everything else. That's what you got to do, Ray.
I guess the other thing, now that I'm thinking of that, I hope this is okay with everyone. If they don't like it, I guess they can eat carrots, because you can't screw that up. And right? Like that's the way it goes, right? Sorry about that.
Well, you're a pretty healthy family, so I'm guessing that there's a good stock of carrots and healthy snacks.
Well, guaranteed, Cammie doesn't eat the steak, so there'll be salmon and stuff like that. But again, I'm just on the list. That's like my focus, So
all right. Well, it sounds like a good time. It will be a good time.
It will.
It's one of those milestones again, right?
Yes, it is. It is, Drake. Yeah.
Bittersweet, though, because as you've talked about, you know what's coming next, and that means Riley's moving out, and that's going to be tough.
That'll be a tough one, but we're like every parent, we're excited and a little sad, but excited, mostly excited for him. So
sure,
we'll get to that. So
everybody
have a great weekend. Enjoy game 5. It will be awesome. Dregs, have a great trip out there.
All right, buddy. Thank you. And yes, thank you to our sponsors as well who continue to support the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast. Our title sponsor, Tim Hortons, thank you. And thank you to Acon. Enjoy Game 5, everybody. In the meantime, have a great weekend and stay safe.